Polanco and Nadal played crucial roles. For me, it's interesting. Polanco, of course, they were not among the first. These were sort of, in terms of the original 10 companions, they considered Polanco and Nadal latecomers, although they were both, Polanco was both in the order within a few years after the founding. Polanco became Ignatius's secretary in 1547. Ignatius had been commissioned to write the constitutions from the very beginning, 1541, when he was elected general. This was also stipulated in the bull, the Formula Regimini. But here we are, 1547, and he'd made some sketches, he'd made some notes and things, but wasn't going to be going any place or going no place pretty fast. Polanco becomes secretary in 1547. By 1550, they've got a version. That tells you something. And we now know from documents that have been discovered how much research Polanco did on the rules and of other religious orders and on the way they were governed. And he has all these questions that he asks Ignatius for resolution. So he's the one. They were kind of co-authors, in a sense, of the Constitution. Ignatius, of course, was the principal one, and he was the inspiration, he was the orientation. But the way the document's organized, I don't think it could have been done by Ignatius. I think this had to be Polanco's work. That's just his kind of mind. Then another important thing he did was he knew the importance of documentation. And when he became secretary, he made sure that in the Curia there were copies made of all the outgoing letters, and then, of course, good filing and archives of the incoming letters, and then insisting with the different provinces that they keep similar archives. That's one reason why the Jesuit documentation for this period is greater than the documentation for the same period of their history of all the other religious orders put together up to this time. It's almost overwhelming in its quantity and in its quality. So he was we call him Ignatius' secretary, but he was, if anything, an executive secretary. So many of the letters by Ignatius were actually written by Polanco, ex commissione. Ignatius would say, write to Mr. Jones about, that money we want from him, and Polanco would write the letter. And even the famous letter on obedience, we know that there were two previous letters on this subject, and they were written by Polanco. And you look at the final letter, the famous letter, you can see that there are changes, of course, differences, but the basic stuff there was from Polanco. So crucial. He kept the central office running and running well, and this was true not only for Ignatius, but then he was a secretary for Lainez, and then he was a secretary for Borgia. So he had that great continuity and absolutely crucial figure. Then his counterpart was Nadal, the agent in the field. These great trips he made throughout Europe, probably every place where Jesuits were, he was there. And he was a genius for instilling an esprit de corps. And for these people, they come into the Society of Jesus. What is the Society of Jesus? I mean, what is it? It's a brand new kid on the block. And as I indicated in the first Jesuits, one of his refrains to these people is, "We are not monks. We are not monks." You didn't enter the Society of Jesus for a life of seclusion and contemplation. We're out for the help of souls. We're a ministerial institution. But he'd come to these communities, there they were, floundering maybe. He'd give them exhortations, talking about the Jesuit way of life, about the Jesuit way of proceeding, about the life of Ignatius. He would invite members of the community, kind of on a rotating basis, to his table in the dining room at dinner and supper, and talk to them at that time about the society. Then he saw individually every member of the community.
Yeah.
And then when he left, he'd leave a set of suggestions or regulations or rules. Many people in the community thought that he was a little obsessive on that point, but he was sort of getting the way of proceeding codified and stabilized, and also giving them a wonderful sense of what the Jesuit vocation was. That other phrase of his, besides we are not monks, the world is our house. We are not monks, nay, indeed, the world is our house. What he meant primarily by that was relates to the fourth vow, that we're moving from place to place everywhere in the world, but it has a fuller meaning, I think, that we're engaged with the saculum, we're engaged with the world as it is. We're not sacristy-type people. We may pay attention to the sacristy, but we're out there. We're in the churches, but we're also in secular space. The classroom is a secular space. They're teaching secular pagan authors. So, at any rate, by the 1556, by the time Ignatius died, the fact is Polanco knew the society better than Ignatius did. I mean, he'd seen all these people face to face. I mean, he'd been out there in the field, and he had better than the correspondence to find out what was going on. He was right there on the scene. So, a genius, really. And just as Polanco was a genius and Ignatius was a genius, and they just wonderfully complemented one another. I want to say why the Society of Jesus was so successful. That was an unbeatable team, Polanco, Nadal, and Ignatius.